so I'm going to give you some study tips. These are all based on science. These have proven to be very effective at the university level. Here's the problem that we have. In high school and in middle school, in elementary school, practice has been on your teacher, meaning they give you the information and then they help you practice it. But once you hit, and they're experts. Your teacher's an expert in studying and their subject and getting you to do that practice. And so they'll give you the lecture, and then they'll give you a video, and then they'll give you an assignment, and they'll give you all this stuff to reinforce that learning. Once you hit the university level, practice is on you. It's no longer on your teacher. And so even in some of our classes that we offer as university classes, the teacher has learned to give you practice because that's their habit. But I want to get you ready for real university success, and so you need to learn to do the practice on your own. That means studying. Now, just so you know, I got what I'm going to teach you from some cognitive scientists. Their name were Roddy Rodiger and Mark McDaniel. I'll give you the source in the end. So it's not just me making crap up. Now, here's tip number 1. Here's the mistake, first of all, that people make. They say, oh, I read my notes. A student will come to me and they'll say, I didn't do well on the test. And I'll say, well, how did you study? I read my notes. I'm like, oh, well, that's not good. That's not good enough. That's not how you use your notes. Like I once had a parent who made their daughter reread the entire AP textbook to prepare for the test, and she did not do well because she didn't use my study materials. She wasn't really studying. She was just reviewing the notes. Reading notes is not effective. Other things are effective, and this is what actually works. You fish the knowledge back out of your brain. You ask yourself questions. You say, okay, what was the contribution of so-and-so to the war of whatever, or what caused this, or you say, hey, what was that? And you try to retrieve that information from your memory. By the way, if it's not in there, then you go back to your notes. Now, how do you know what you're supposed to retrieve from your memory? Honestly, the best way is to structure your notes. You put some kind of key question up here. You put other questions down the side, and you do it this way. This is called Cornell notes. Students sometimes fight it because they're like, oh yeah, I had a middle school teacher who told me to do that. Yeah, well, it wasn't developed for middle school. It was developed for students at Cornell, which is a prestigious university. So for the love of Pete, humble yourself. If that's you. That's probably not you. Whatever. Okay. Number 2 is you got to space out your practice. The mistake students make is they learn it fast, but if you learn it fast, you will forget it fast. The other mistake students make is they get all into the learning styles fallacy. Learning styles like you say, oh, I'm a kinesthetic learner, or I'm an auditory learner, or I'm a visual learner. That might be your preference, but people, they aren't actually different kinds of learners. That is one of the most thoroughly debunked ideas by cognitive scientists in education, and yet it perpetuates that myth. The thing is, you remember things that are repeated. It doesn't matter how it comes to you. And I will show you how that works because, well, and I know you might not trust me because I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my number. So, right, you know that. Why? Because it's repeated so many times, over and over and over and over. That's what you remember, things you see again and again and again. And that's one of the things with studying. You have to see the information again and again and again and again. That's it. Your brain does not remember things because you're like, this is important. I must remember it. That doesn't help at all, actually. You're just wasting time and memorizing that things are important, which you already knew. Instead, you got to see it over and over. Number 3, the mistake that students make is that they want to, they try to master one thing at a time. I'm going to focus on history right now, and I'm not going to do anything else. This is my special time for history, then I'll do chemistry, then math. What you should actually do is switch it up. Spend a little bit of time on one and a little bit of time on another and a little bit of time on another. Actually, they found that it's more effective if you spend a little bit of time like in the line at the grocery store or the fast food place or whatever. Switch it up and change it up. This is what you should do. Go from one to the next and don't spend a lot of time on it, but repeat it so that you get it. Next, you got to test yourself. So what you do is you make up practice tests and take them repeatedly as you study. These don't have to be formal. So the mistake people make is they sit and they think the same thing. Everything has to be the same, but that's not it. Instead, you need to test yourself. Go through with your own brain and say, okay, I'm getting this information. Notice that this is related to the fishing information out of your brain. You think, oh, this is a question Crawford might ask me. And then you study that question. What this does is this changes your brain's pathways. Instead of being like this image on the left that's overgrown with weeds and hasn't been used, if it gets used a lot more, it ends up being like a superhighway and the information comes very rapidly. Okay, this also tells you what you know and what you don't know, and so you're aware of it. So that's really useful. Now, the last two are easy things to do if you will find the time for them. The first is take notes with your hands. See, the mistake is that students take notes on their laptops, and you might be thinking that this is the problem, but this isn't really the problem. The real problem is that when you take notes by hand, you process it through more parts of your brain. It takes more work to take it by hand, and so when you're processing that through different sections of your brain, you are learning it better. So it's more effective. Number 6, sleep more. And this is the mistake. Students stay up really late, cramming and doing whatever. It matters because sleep is when memories consolidate. And they're not sure why yet. They just know those who have adequate sleep are able to retrieve information better than those who are tired. Now, what you should actually do is sleep. And students always resist this one. They're always like, oh yeah, but I have this and this and this and this. Honestly, the biggest impediment to student sleep is almost never sometimes it's the job, sometimes it's the activities, but it's almost never that. It's almost always the phone. And let me step into my role as a computer science teacher and tell you the single best thing you can do for your mental and physical health with your phone is to charge it in someone else's room at night. If you need an alarm, go to Walmart, get an alarm. They're not very expensive. But this is one of the big things. Find a way to do it. You could sit and be like, oh, I'm not going to do it because basically I don't want to, but it really is more effective. Now, I mean, that's just my advice. Now, what's the source? This is my source, Psychology Today. Make it stick. You could do it. That's really helpful. You can also look this up at other places if you do peer-reviewed studies. But honestly, study your history instead.